Hi, welcome back to Shop Talk with the Sheriff. I'm Sheriff Gregory Toney here in Broward County. We first of all thank you all for the continued support. For those who have been listening over the last few months and paying attention to our podcast, you've seen a pattern here. I try to bring in a multitude of different perspective and personnel and experience from within the agency and external. Sometimes we have guests that come in from different partnerships that we use. And today we're back in-house. Today I have the honor to bring in Captain Roy Liddicott, who heads up our civil division. I also call him AKA the GOAT. Captain Liddicott brings a ton of experience into the organization. Just a quick highlight reel. He started his career in law enforcement going back in 1975 with the city of North Lauderdale. He rose to the rank of captain during the merger, transitioned over to BSO in 2001, served as the commander of the criminal investigations functions in the department. He's the captain over the Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport. And I had the honor of, actually, I met the captain long before I was the sheriff. He and I go back to about 2006 to 2007 period, where I was a rookie patrolman in Coral Springs. I was on a traffic stop. And then I see this guy pops out the car with all the gold shining, rank. And I'm like, ooh, I better have my act together. And it was Captain Liddicott that came up, backed me up. Gave me some words of encouragement as a young officer, and fate should have it, we run into each other again.
And here we are.
Now we're working together. So Captain, look, welcome to the show. I appreciate you coming in. Today we're going to talk a little bit about, what you do now, your command function over civil division and evictions. That's a sensitive topic now. But before we do that, before we dive into the business, let's talk a little bit about the man. 50 years in law enforcement.
Almost, yes.
Almost 50 years.
Yes, sir.
What was the driving force behind it? What got you involved, and what's keeping you, right?
It's clichéic, but, I was just raised just by parents that just did the right thing. And it was always about doing the right thing and helping people. And my dad just pressed that, help people, just always help people. So, I looked for a profession where I could make a difference. And I started this job, and I still make a difference today. And that's why my edict to all the people I work with, I tell, make a difference every day in somebody's life. As minor as it might be, we're in that position. Very few professions where you can do that.
That's right.
We can make a difference every day in somebody's life.
Yeah.
And do it. You may not know you did it. You may never know you did it, but you did it. And that's a goal I set with my folks, and I tell them you just have to. And I try to do that the same thing.
Now you have a family law enforcement culture.
I do.
Is that correct?
That is correct.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Actually, none of my parents not, but in-laws. My brother-in-law was a lieutenant, retired as a lieutenant with the sheriff's office here. I had another brother-in-law that also retired as a lieutenant with the sheriff's office here.
So you have a lot of Thanksgiving conversations about law enforcement work and sharing concepts, as you can imagine.
We do, and I currently have my nephew's a sergeant with the agency. And so we're pretty driven in the agency. I'm born and raised in Broward County, too. I'm a local product. So.
Yeah, it's hometown and the agency.
Absolutely.
You've seen the agency grow coming over from, North Lauderdale and where we are now.
Correct.
I tell you what, a big issue of concern is a byproduct of COVID-19. We all know how it's impacting us even to this day. But the community and the suffering aspects when it comes to eviction notifications and the moratoriums that were passed, my email's blowing up, my Instagram's blowing up. Everyone's, trying to figure out, hey, what does this mean for me? And you did an outstanding job a few days ago in the video.
Thank you.
For those who are listening, if you want to get more intel about how the eviction process worked, Captain Liddicott did an outstanding job on one of our videos. You can find it on all of our social media platforms. But now we have him here in front of a microphone. Let's take this step by step.
Sure.
All right. Most folks don't understand what your responsibilities are. So let's start with this. How many people are roughly under your command?
69.
69. And talk a little bit about the baseline responsibilities you have day to day in civil, and then how that applies to eviction notifications.
We do a lot of work in the civil division that's outside of evictions. We serve domestic violence, restraining orders, all kinds of documents related to that. We serve subpoenas, we serve summonses, child support summonses, all those type of documents. We serve about 6,500 a month.
Wow.
We average on documents served by those people. The majority of those 69 are civilians. We call them civil process servers that do an absolutely amazing job at what they do. And they're the ones in the community. They got their feet on the ground in the community and delivering all these items. And as you can imagine, a lot of these items the people aren't happy to get,
That's right.
But they do a great job of delivering them anyway. And that's a message I like to get across is we're just the messenger. In all these documents, BSO doesn't start them. They're not the ones behind them. We just simply deliver the message that either judges approve or come from attorneys.
And that was one of the things I saw in your video that I was like, man, awesome presentation, because from a statutory element, let me just educate the community a little bit. It is my responsibility as the sheriff to make sure we execute those activities and decisions from our judges in the county.
Correct.
But what people see, Captain, you know this, when they come home is what? They see the BSO logo on the door.
Absolutely.
And then there's the assumption that BSO is evicting them, right? And so I'm glad you gave clarity to that. Now that we're in this period where, fortunately, a few days ago, there's been an extension from the federal government on the moratorium for evictions. How is that applying here at the state level, and what does that mean for your division?
What it is they've extended that to October the 2nd, CDC has, which allows renters that are affected by COVID-19 and can't pay their rent, allows them the opportunity to fill out a document, a declaration form, submit that to their landlord, and they could be eligible for the moratorium. And a lot of people don't know that this just doesn't happen.
Right.
You have to be an advocate for yourself. There's certain forms you have to fill out. You as the renter have to take that action on your own. They're just not going to knock on your door and say, hey, the moratorium applies to you, you're good to go.
That's right.
You've got some things you have to do on your end.
And let me just direct the audience, for anybody who's facing this set of circumstances and has some concerns about this, you need to go on the Broward.org. And that is Broward.org, and immediately start to complete the paperwork as the captain's describing. There was roughly $53 million that was afforded to Broward County when it comes to the federal relief fund for the housing aspect that was in there. And there's still money left in there.
A lot of money.
And that means people are not applying, because I'm still getting emails, I'm still getting the calls saying, hey, I'm not ready, Sheriff, don't evict me. And I'm saying, whoa, we're not evicting you. We're executing the process, and you still have time. So the extension goes to October 2nd.
That is correct.
That means people need to be on Broward.org, punching away on their keys, filling this paperwork out. What do you see in Captain in terms of that timeline? You have any information on that once they complete the paperwork? How is that process?
They've actually sped it up. The county has in the last couple of weeks. They've streamlined it to make it a little more efficient.
Good.
I think the timeline is pretty quick. I'm talking a week or two. I think people are hearing things. But, you know, by the time they get to that point, the landlords have to do a 3-day notice to them by statute. So, and then they apply what they call a 5-day notice, which we serve. Our civilian folks serve a 5-day notice after that. So then after that, they have 5 days to respond to whatever allegations are. Either you didn't pay, or you're a bad tenant, you've violated your lease, you violated the homeowners association rules, any number of things you can get evicted for that aren't COVID-19 related. And we've been very busy with those evictions, and people just think in general that you can't get evicted during COVID. Well, you certainly can if it's not related to payment for rent.
Now, you mentioned earlier that from processing aspect, there's 6,500 plus, but that's not necessarily when we're talking about the evictions. Give the audience an idea from, let's say, the onset of 2021, from January to now. How many actual evictions roughly have we served out there? Because there's been stoppage, right, start, stop, start, over and over.
We have served and closed almost 4,000 evictions.
About 4,000.
As of this morning, I checked. And we're about 3,800 and change in evictions for this calendar year so far. And those are all approved by a judge. The judges have heard the arguments from the owners, the landlords, and the tenants, and have decided that they don't qualify for the COVID-19 moratorium, and they've signed the paperwork and sent it to us.
You know, just from the other side of it, we've been talking on behalf, in essence, of the tenant. Hey, here's the things you can do to help slow this process down. What are you seeing take place? Because I also get my business folks call, the landlords, the property owners, who are also a little confused and trying to figure things out. What are you seeing on their side of it? Any tips for them? Anything you've heard?
You know, we work with them very closely because, you know, like you said, they're after you. Well, they're after us too, and we feel for them. You know, we see both sides of it.
Right. We
see the tenant when we show up to, and putting somebody out of their house is a pretty serious matter, and we take it very serious, and it's very emotional for a lot of people, including my folks. You know, when you put people out in the street or out of their house, that's something we don't like to do.
Yeah, and you see their kids and the ripple effect on all that.
Absolutely.
That's right.
But we also feel for the other side because there's people, one person I dealt with in particular, it was a husband and wife. They took their life savings and they bought 5 properties, and that was their retirement income. Mm-hmm. Well, 3 of those 5 just decided not to pay. They all had jobs. They just thought they could get away with not paying. Well, it took the gentleman quite a while to get them out, but they finally did get them evicted. But people like that, there's people taking advantage.
You're going to find the opportunists.
Absolutely.
There's always the opportunists. They're going to see a loophole, and they're going to take advantage of it.
100%.
And then that impacts. That's the story you're telling now. And that's just from my perspective, just to share with the audience. We have the statutory responsibility to execute and fulfill these things, but we're also human beings. You just heard the captain say, hey, we feel for this. And we unfortunately, or fortunately, get to feel it on both sides. We're sympathetic to the tenant, we're sympathetic to the landlord, and we're seeing that conflict occur. And it's troubling when we do have those folks that decides we're going to take advantage of this opportunity, because it just messes up the whole system.
It really does. And we schedule these evictions 30 to 45 minutes apart, most all days long, with several teams. However, some of the evictions, our deputies won't just put people out and leave. That's just not what we do. We spent almost 7 hours with a woman a couple of months ago who was in a wheelchair, invalid. She had nowhere to go. We called our homeless outreach team. They came on board. It took them 6 or 7 hours. We got her placement. We got her food assistance. We got her a place to stay. We could have put her out in the front yard and just drove away. We just won't do that.
No, it's not the right thing to do. I know that sounds really simple, but it's not the moral thing to do either, right? We're not here to create hardships. We're here to protect and serve, and that's another service that we have to provide. We can't just leave somebody out there without any access to resources that they need. So I know that about you, and I know that's how you command the entire civil division. The next thing I would talk about is in general with COVID-19 and how it's been impacting our agency, how it's been impacting the community. What are you anticipating is going to be your greatest hardship in your division as we're fighting a new variant, right? The Delta variant, and now we're going backwards. What do you see being the biggest complication?
We dealt with it when the COVID-19 first came out, and our biggest problem is going to be just keeping everybody healthy. Mm-hmm. And we do all the things we need to do, the social distancing, the mask, and we sanitize. We give the deputies and these process servers fresh gloves all the time, all kinds of sanitizers. So we do our best to keep our people safe. And on the other side, we do the same thing with those folks.
Have you seen an impact, or can you describe the impact when it comes to the court system in itself, Broward County Courthouse not being open in terms of normal flow of business? Is that slowing things down for you?
For us, it hasn't, but I'm sure it has for the tenants and the landlords, because now that they're open again, but it was harder for them to get court time. They did it all by Zoom, and a lot of these tenants aren't real Zoom friendly. Yeah, they don't have access to the facilities to Zoom into a judge's hearing. So it probably impacted them more than us.
Yeah, and Zoom is still fairly new. I remember early on when COVID first started impacting back in 2020 in February or so, and these meetings start taking place, and there was a lot of troubleshooting. People were trying to figure out what is Zoom, how to access it, how to work it. And we're talking about government entities, right? Not within a home. So now we're going to, the financial element. What type of household are you in? Or do they have capabilities for computers? And do they have the modern iPhones? There's still flip phones out there. I've seen them. Not everybody can afford to spend $1,000 on an iPhone or a Galaxy 7 or whatever's out there now. So that's a very good point. Captain, you put 50 years in general in the industry in law enforcement. So I'm going to take advantage. This is some personal Greg Tony time with you. What have you seen from where you started to where we are now as a law enforcement culture? And where do you think we need to head to make sure we meet the needs of Broward County residents? I know that's a deep one for your partner, but
it is.
You gave me wisdom back in 2007, and it worked out, right? So
well, look where you're at.
That's right. Let's keep it going. You
know what? I'm a firm believer that people are good, and I really am. And people, they roll their eyes when I say that all the time. But 95% of the people we deal with are just good people. And, bad things happen to good people.
That's right.
And I remind people that all the time. Bad things happen to good people. And I'm a firm believer also. 95% of the public supports everything we do in law enforcement. Everything we do. 100% support from most of the public. The ones that don't support us, they're just not going to.
That's right.
And those are the ones we spend most of our time on, unfortunately. It's the good people, the good, hardworking people that never see us, but support everything we do. I tell people all the time, they say, well, we never see the police. I go, well, you probably don't, but you never see the mailman either, but you get your mail every day.
Right.
So, it's like that. But it's about being visible. It's about being out there, being more approachable. I'm seeing we're getting less and less people on the job now, the younger ones,
Mm-hmm.
that just don't have that conversation skill because, this generation has grown up doing
Everything's
this.
on the phone.
They're doing this.
Scroll up,
Yes.
up, down, left, right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they're so electronic savvy, all that electronic stuff. You know what? That's not our biggest access. We got fancy stuff. Look at all the things around here. We
That's
got
right.
gear. We got stuff. We got all kinds of bells and whistles. People. That's what matters. That's
Yeah.
all that counts.
Well, I mean, look, I can't tell you how important that is because, I go through this all the time in the academic world, teaching, etc. We're losing that social skill. It's becoming difficult. You go in a restaurant and everyone's on the phone. In our profession, that's our fundamental tool. All right, we open our mouth every day. We're not pulling our gun out the holster every day,
Right.
but we're talking to someone, we're communicating with them, and we're trying to connect with them at the human level to help de-escalate and really just be empathetic to some of the things that we have to see out there. For those of you who just chimed in, shame on you for being late. But however, I just want to go back through as we're closing out. Today we had the honor to have in Captain Roy Liddicott, BSO veteran, law enforcement veteran, 50 plus years, commander over our civil division, who's done an outstanding job for us during this difficult time as we fight through COVID. You heard him talk, or if you missed it, play it back, about the importance of just connecting with the community, being sympathetic to what's going on. We're not robots, but we still have a function and responsibility we have to do under the law, and we'll make sure we do as much as we can to support the community. One more reminder for those of you who are have some concerns, the potential to be evicted, you need to log on to Broward.org, Broward.org right now. Stop listening to me and log on right now and complete your paperwork. Broward County received roughly $53 million for the Housing Relief Fund, and we need to make sure we maximize that because not all the funds have been used as of yet. Once again, Captain, thank you for joining us on the show.
My pleasure.
Always great to have you, and I'll definitely have you back as we communicate more with the community.
Love to.
For those on the air, thank you for joining me on Shop Talk with the Sheriff. Remember to follow me on Instagram at BSO Sheriff Tony. It's not a stunt double, it's me. Also, subscribe to the podcast so you can get early alerts for every new episode. In the meantime, stay safe, be humble, and try to love somebody a little bit more than you love yourself.